Welcome back to the Fantasy Boss Football Podcast, Episode 4. I'm Ronald, that's Ryan. Two guys, real rosters on the record. So much has changed since last week because the pads are on now. Can't talk, words are hard. Camps are open, and for the first time all summer, we're not reacting to somebody's opinion. We're reacting to actual practice, which means, tonight we'll grade ourselves against some actual real football. And I'll tell you up front, one of our guys gets a victory lap and one of them got wrong. Ryan, where do you want to start?
I'm thinking we could probably start with Malik Nabers. He's got to be the hottest name going right now.
Actually, we'll come back to neighbors. How's your week been, man? How are you? How's your life?
Man, doing good. Seems like time is just flying lately. Obviously, we're getting through just a beautiful stretch here, getting through training camp. I'm getting my fix every day, hitting the clips online and just seeing who's doing well, who's not doing well, kind of trying to, be prepared to address these conversations. So, but feeling really good about it, man. How's everything going with you? I know you got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's good. I'm recording from Germany now. I'm in here for a few days. Yeah. So I went from the expo, which was amazing. If y'all haven't been to the Fantasy Football Expo, definitely go. It's great to go and connect with, real life fantasy players in the community out in Canton, Ohio at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Bob Lung and the expo team were great about putting that event together. So it's a great time. So went from that in Ohio to London for a bit, and now I'm in Germany and coming back home on Monday or so because it's fantasy time, man. It's football time. Let's go. I'm ready.
I respect it, man. You dig deep and find that energy to keep going. But yeah, that's awesome, man. Kudos to you. That sounds really fun. And obviously, we got a good thing going here. And Fantasy Boss is looking really clean lately, so we're excited.
But yeah, big things coming. All right, let's now go back to Neighbors, who, speaking of digging deep, he was somehow able to avoid the pup entirely. 10 months after ACL plus a scar tissue cleanup, running routes full speed and individual drills. Not yet a full participant. The team's optimistic for week one versus Dallas. How you feeling about Neighbors?
Man, I feel really good. It's kind of like I was saying a couple of weeks ago. There's so much. It was so murky, and there was so much left to play out with it. But this was kind of one of those scenarios. I think we kind of got lost in, all these reports and these off-season reports. Oh, everything is so gloom and just miserable with him or whatever. But realistically, nobody ever said. I don't think he ever said that there was a secondary cleanup for scar tissue. We knew that the initial surgery happened, and then we saw that he was in a brace for a little while, and he was running funky and in some of these things, like in the baseball game or whatever. But I don't think anybody ever really came out and said, yeah, he had another cleanup after that. It's so bad, everything looks bad. So then we kind of just ran with this narrative because we saw him kind of gimpy or whatever. A couple short weeks later, he sheds the brace and he's running clean routes, and it looks like he's well on pace to play week one. I would be shocked if he wasn't full go sometime soon in training camp.
Sure, teams that think a guy is going to miss a month, they put him on the pup, right? So obviously they don't think he's going to miss a month, so that's definitely a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Ooh,
the way he's cutting right now looks like he should be ready week one. I mean, I would think he might be ready in camp. He's cutting on both of his legs. He's running routes, all kind of routes right now. Looks like himself out there. So if training camp just started, we still got plenty of time before week one for him to get right. So I would be at this rate, seeing where he's at right now. Man, I would be shocked. They were slow rolling us on this one. They probably knew and they were laughing at us back there, but they they were like, yeah, okay, yeah, he might hit the pop, whatever you guys think, whatever. They don't want to give away all the juicy details for their opponents or whatever, but he looks like he's on pace for week one, and I'm telling you right now, if he does play week one, he's one of the very best values. I was able to get a share of him in Dynasty after the bad news happened, and hopefully everybody else was able to buy low because his stock is only going up.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no kidding. And speaking of the pup, we got old Charbonnet on the pup. How you feeling about the Seattle backfield after winning the Super Bowl? That their backfield's looking a little light there.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I think I watched some clips the other day. Jadarian Price was getting loose down the field on like a wheel route, caught it over his shoulder for a touchdown. So, and I read today also that he was the first one through getting the reps over Halani today. So, you know, Excuse me, but Charbonnet being out gives him, obviously Price has the first round draft capital. He was buried behind Love for a while, but always per play very explosive. I think that he's going to have every opportunity to come out and solidify himself as at the very least a 1A, even when Charbonnet comes back. Depending on how long that takes. But yeah, I'm getting geared up for Price. I think that the value you can get him right now, I mean, you can get him late, whether he's a first or second guy on your bench, round 8, round 9, or whatever it's going to be. Seems like a really good price. And if you want to just turn around and grab Charbonnet, put him on that IR slot or whatever, I think that's a great call. I think that you should do that too. But Price is the guy that I would be targeting. It looks like Emmanuel Wilson is a secondary option in camp right now. He's not really running with the ones, so yeah, I think that that Price is the guy to go get. But we'll see, man. If Charbonnet plays week 1, it certainly is murky. But if he's missing the first 4, I like Price there.
Man, it's crazy how they went from Super Bowl champs with Walker and Charbonnet to now maybe no Charbonnet, Walker's gone. That's we'll see how that shakes out. I mean, they've got some talent there in that backfield that could come into play, but man, that's a tough way to start the season without your 2 guys from last year.
Yeah, things can change in a hurry, man. Coming off that high, now you're getting beat up, kind of fighting for your life. You lose your coordinator. Well, that's the thing, right? When you're doing well, everybody wants a piece of your stuff. So, it's one of those things like, oh, Kubiak, zoink, take all their stuff. The Baron, cabinets now. So I think they'll be okay. I think they'll regroup, and I'm sure Darnold will come out and ball out. They got Horton. They got a couple good guys that can still make plays. So, but I think Price, man, they believe in him. First round draft capital for a running back is, if you look at the track record of guys that are taken that high, the success rate is extremely high. So, I think especially in dynasty, Price is a great buy. With even if Charbonnet is healthy soon, this is a contract year for him. Nobody's to say, that he even comes back in 27 anyways.
For sure, teams don't like paying those running backs. So next man up.
Exactly right. Yeah, well, you're a secondary running back. Hey, thanks. We got a Super Bowl with you. Move on and do something else so we can get somebody else and, put our money on defense, which is what got us that Super Bowl in the first place.
And speaking of defense, let's talk about Cleveland's day 1 versus day 2. So Watson took every first team rep day 1 and threw 2 picks. And then Shadur alternated first team reps day 2 with Dion at the practice meeting with the head coach and the GM. Munkin says he won't be prescriptive at the beginning of camp. The reps are the story, right? Not the quotes. So Munkin's not naming, crowning a starter now, but it's interesting seeing some of the alternating between Shadur and Watson, especially after Watson opened camp with, those couple of picks, not the best luck.
Yep, exactly right. I think that any ground, or any advantage that Watson had coming into camp is very quickly being erased. I know on Cal Sheet or whatever, I think he was like a slight favorite, whether it was like 50 or, 55, 60% to start week 1. I think that is probably shrinking, and I know Sanders has been balling, and obviously Watson has been probably one of the few guys in the entire league that's been obviously struggling. I think he threw another pick today, so he started with 2 yesterday, threw 1 today, and he was against the second teamers today. So Shadur's been a lot sharper than him, and which is surprising because I think Watson was looking good in the early camp days, that early off season. But yeah, man, Sanders looks sharp, and hey, man, he's showing up, and good for him, man. He definitely could end up being a good player for them if he keeps it up like this. So.
And it's kind of the opposite thing happening in Vegas. Kubiak has named Kirk Cousins the starter over Mendoza, the number 1 pick. We're going with experience over the high upside, which might be the opposite of what Cleveland's doing if they end up going with Shadur starting. So how you feel about Mendoza being on the bench?
It's something that I kind of thought might happen for quite a while now. The writing's been on the wall. If you hear Tom Brady's philosophy is always to, if you hear him talking about anybody, it's like, oh, he's talking up the way that they did Rodgers or, whatever. He likes for people to learn and be prepared rather than to sit out. And he's said this so many times, and I think everybody's like, yeah, that's bullshit, that's bullshit, whatever. Like, there's no way they're going to sit the number 1 pick. And it looks like they're going to. And I all along kind of believed that they might. And especially, I think, with the fact that it took him so long to get signed and he missed, that early part of the offseason program with him and stuff. So I think that he probably lost any edge that he might have had at starting week one. And I don't, I think it's pretty much all but a done deal that Kirko is going to be in there doing things week one. So I would fully expect them to lose some games. Even as a Raiders fan, it pays me to say that a little bit, but I would expect Kirko to lose some games. That's a tough division. They've got a tough schedule, and I think they're a little more competitive. I think that they'll have a lot more
Mm.
confidence and juice with Kubiak, but yeah, Kirko will be out on the bench. Whatever, hanging out and coaching up Mendoza. I would say week 6 probably at the latest.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about that. It's like I understand how maybe a team that has higher aspirations this year, would start Cousins, but nobody's expecting Vegas to make the playoffs or make a deep playoff run. So that experience for a young player is invaluable. So I'm kind of surprised they've committed to Kirk Cousins so early on versus letting Mendoza, learn with the lumps and having Kirk on the bench to support him from there. Because
I
like you
think
said, he's probably going to be starting by week 6 anyways, right? So what's the harm? You're not going to win this year. Let him go and get some experience.
I think they want him to go into his first start feeling like he's prepared because part of it is even just watching him early in camp, getting used to being under center more. He was never really a guy that was taking those like Kubiak really likes to run under center a lot and have his quarterbacks under center like as much as possible, play that pro style offense. So I think that they want to make sure that before they throw him in, with the Wolves, that first of all, the line can protect him. Second of all, guys are out there at least able to make some plays for him, and they don't put him in such a situation where he's failing and maybe it affects his mental state or something. I think they
Hmm.
want him to just feel like he's ready, and they don't want to throw him in too soon. Brady has said that countless times, even about just the handling with Love and with all these other things. So I think he's a believer where they're going to get him up to speed, and they're going to make sure that they trust him to run the offense, take the snaps clean under center and do all those things that a pro should do, whether that's like week 3 or week 6 or week 9 or whatever, like depending on how, the wins and losses are looking. I really don't mind the move. I think that he'll get his experience this year. I think that they just don't want to throw him out there like completely green, behind the ears. And I think they want to make sure that he feels like he's at least somewhat ready to go out there. And it remains to be seen when. But I'm with you. I think it'll be in the first half of the season.
And we'll see. And let's talk about some other news here of a little bit of uncertainty. So Josh Jacobs, no charges filed. The DA confirmed in late July the investigation is still open, but he's back at practice now. And independent of what happens in the official court system, the NFL can act independently. And there's a historical baseline of around 6 games for off the field stuff like this. So while he's on the field and practicing now, what are your thoughts about his fantasy price and what could be coming from the NFL?
In redraft, I would feel pretty confident. I think any time that we've seen this play out over the last number of years, whether it was like Kamara or Rashee Rice or whatever, a lot of the time, well, the Rice was a weird one because he like voluntarily did whatever before last year, even though we thought it was going to get pushed out. But yeah, a lot of times, if it's not through court, the NFL is not going to do anything unless the player like voluntarily does something himself. So I think in Dynasty, I would be worried that the future like it could play out that way, whether that's 27 or whatever. But for 2026, I would feel pretty good, man. I mean, August starts tomorrow. You're so close to the start of the season, and I just don't think it's going to get through court and have all those hoops that you've got to jump through before the NFL decides whether they want to discipline him. And it's so murky to the point where I don't think that they would discipline him until there's a ruling. Yeah, I think that he's good for redraft, man. I think that you can feel pretty good about it unless something changes in the next couple weeks. Because if we get to midway through August or whatever, I don't see that we have enough time for them to come down on him with any kind of suspension for this year. But future that remains to be seen. But yeah.
Yeah. So we've been doing this a couple weeks now. We've made some, picks and made some opinions on some certain folks that we like. Some of those folks, we got a victory lap coming, but we've got one going against us. So let's talk about the victory lap. Tyler Shuck, unquestioned starter, no competition, added 6 pounds of muscle. What the hell? Beast mode.
Woo! Beefcake,
Uh,
baby.
yeah, cut his body
Shuck
fat.
tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, he get shucked real good. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, he cut his body fat. He's got Olav, Juwan Johnson, rookie Jordan Tyson around him. Uh, but it seems like even though he's got all these positive things around him, I think when we first started talking about him, he was right around pick 120 or so, and now he's closer to 165. And it's like the more good news we get on him, the market is just fading him. So how you feeling about that?
I love it. I'm always against the grain, anyways. Everybody's like, "What about ADP? Don't you follow ADP?" I'm like, I don't follow. I'm like, I make my own rankings. I do my own thing. I don't follow that stuff. So, if anything, for me, that's more enticing because what his value is even better, but he's only been doing like he's doing well. So like, I don't understand why like, oh, as ADP's fading. I'm like, good. Well, then I can wait longer and feel even better when I plug this dude onto my bench. On like on the later rounds, man, because he's going to come out and do well. He's looked extremely confident. They've already come out and they paid Olave his money, so now you don't have to worry about a holdout. You don't have to worry about anything like that. He's got his alpha back. Okay, cool. They cleared Jordan Tyson. He's full go. He's not sitting out. He's not getting, monitored, or his reps aren't getting, whatever. So, and he's out there making plays. I've already seen him make 3 or 4. He had a touchdown the other day, yesterday, and Olave's making grabs. Yeah, Juwan Johnson, like you said, is a good player. And now they're talking about, AK potentially splitting up, passing down work with ETN. So I just think that he's got so many weapons, and he looks like he's ready to go. So, yeah, Tyler Shuck is man, get him queued up because he's going to be one of the best values at the quarterback position, whether it's dynasty, late in drafts. Okay, hey, man, you passed up quarterback the first few rounds. You wanted to grab some studs at other positions. Go get him, man. He's a great player, and he should do well. I know he's a little bit older, but, I think he's really going to have a nice year. He's got everything you want. He's mobile. He's got a big arm. He's got a great play caller, and he's got great weapons and arguably a top 3 offensive line. So fire him up, baby. I don't care. Keep on dropping, and I'm going to keep on waiting to get you, and I'll be so happy, man, when I can just wait forever and get my guy late.
Yeah, draft Tyler and shuck your league up. Huh? Huh? Did you like that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Let's see
welcome.
who else we got here. Rice got 6 games, no appeal. He's serving it, healthy. He's a top 15 talent, but you're going to miss him the first handful of weeks in the season. How you feeling about that?
I believe that was last year for Reishi, wasn't it? That he had that suspension. This year he's in the clear. He's out at camp. He's I don't know if he's 100%. He looked a little bit slow, but he's out there moving a little bit. It was
Dude, I feel like I just fell back into the matrix for a second. As I was saying, I was like, hold on, this was like, man, it's late here in Germany, so pardon that. Well, we're not going to cut it because fuck that. But yeah, ignore that part. Sorry about that. Let's move on to Judkins and Montgomery. So Judkins, full go, looking good. We love him. There's nothing, new to add there. He's yeah,
he's catching
I mean,
balls. I saw
yeah,
his story yesterday. He was catching a screen pass, and I'm out there like hitting up all the people that told me, well, yeah, but he only plays the first 2 downs in negative game scripts. I'm like,
yeah.
he's out here catching balls, baby. Monken is firing them up. So, I like Judkins catching some more passes this year. It's going to feel good bragging on that one.
Oh yeah. Well, we keep talking about him, so he's going to be that guy's going to be rising up and up and up.
Yep, I would think his ADP creeps up, a lot higher than people expect. Especially he's got no physical limitations with that injury. He's out there on 3rd downs catching balls, doing everything. So yeah, I think he's a guy that's just going to move way up. He might even move up a full round ADP by the time we're in September.
Well, we were right. We were early and right on Judkins, but we may not have been so right on Montgomery because the camp says he's splitting lead back duties with 2nd-year back Woody Marks, something like 55-45. And they're now right up saying Montgomery's ADP is way too high. A couple weeks ago, we were also high on Montgomery, thinking he'd take that bell cow role, but it seems like it's not going to be the case now. So what are you doing with Montgomery? Are you staying away altogether, or are you taking him, super late if he falls?
That's a tough one. I've been banging the drum for Judkins over Montgomery, but I've still been on Montgomery. I don't really believe that they're going to do that. I just think that Monty is so much better, especially on early downs, man. Woody Marks, you look at him try to handle that workload last year, and I swear he was limping on every single play. I think he came out of like 90% of the games that he played. He just couldn't handle it. So, I think that Monty is going to be an anchor. Now, where that could have some validity is, I think, on 3rd downs, 2-minute drills, passing downs. I think that Monty is capable, and I think that he can do it, and I would like to see him roll out there at least on whatever half the passing snaps. But Woody Marks definitely is a good pass catching running back. I will definitely give him credit on that. So if you tell me Monty takes like probably 85% of the early down work, I would say that's probably like that seems likely to me. I'm not worried about Woody Marks taking down goal line work or early down grinder work from Monty. But he could steal some of that pass work, man. That would make me a little bit nervous. So yeah, I guess while I've got Judkins keep moving up, I wouldn't be surprised to see Monty stay put or move down a couple spots for sure. I'm with you on that one. That one, Woody Marks is no slouch on passing downs.
Yeah, it's all about value, which is a function of time on the field, right? Opportunity. You could be the best player in the world, but if you're not on that gridiron catching those balls or running that rock, it's gonna be hard to score those fantasy points we all love so much. And
Exactly.
speaking about value, Mr. One Quentin Johnson had McDaniel comping him to Julio Jones and Andre Johnson. That's some pretty big love there. Harbaugh is saying that aces all offseason, a career. Sorry. Let's go back to Quentin. I was about to get onto McConkey. So Quentin Johnson, how you feeling about the comps there, and how you feeling about the value? We've seen him for a few years now. Big games, small games. High floor, or I'm sorry, high ceiling, low floor. What are you doing with him?
These Chargers coaches are too funny, man. It's like a soap opera. You hear Jim Harbaugh. I think the other day he's like, Herbert is the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life, and he's the best quarterback that ever played. And McDaniel comes in and he's juicing everybody. They're just getting everybody juiced up. So I think it's cool and I think it's good for them. I don't necessarily think that they believe it. I think that they're just trying to do their best to maybe pump their team up and give them some confidence. But yeah, I don't see Quentin Johnston being anything like Julio or Andre Johnson or anything like that. There's no way he could really believe something like that, man. Andre Johnson was so good. His route tree was complete. He was not just a vertical guy. He was a dog. Go ask Cortland Finnegan. He had a mouthful of Andre Johnson there. That one day they were getting into that scuffle.
Mm-hmm.
But
oh yeah, poor Portland.
yeah, they were just going at it. But yeah, Johnson was a dog. Julio is clearly one of the most talented receivers that ever played the game. So, I like that you're trying to pump him up, but man, there's no way in hell you can possibly believe he's like those guys. I did see him catch a one-handed grab, deep over the middle, in one of the days in camp, and he does look pretty good. He's very explosive. I mean, you get him going in the screen game, you get him going, taking shots downfield, whether that's, in that Tyreek role or whatever. He can definitely stretch it. So I like Quentin Johnston, but I'm definitely not buying into those comments. I think he's fair right around his ADP, but I'm not going to reach to get him because I'm still not a believer in him being a very good player. He's going to have to prove to me that he, can catch footballs regularly before I buy into him, being like those guys.
Yeah, we've seen him over the years, week to week, very inconsistent. But man, when he has those big monster games, oof, I feel like every monster game he had, my opponent had him that week and, crushed me. But at least in years past, there was that discount coming with Johnston. But I feel like now the market's moving up on him. And it's like you just said, it's hard to pay a higher price when that week to week consistency isn't there.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, like I've said before, man, I'm going to keep on saying Trey Harris is my favorite value in that wide receiver room. I wonder if he can even get out and play some two wide receiver sets, too. I would love to see Trey Harris out there in two wide receiver sets. So, I think in PPR leagues, I think that there's a world where Trey Harris catches more balls than Quentin Johnston. With Johnston will probably have a higher yards per catch. He'll probably have more long touchdowns and all those flashy things. But if you're talking PPR leagues, Trey Harris is going to be a better value. You can get him at the end of the end of any draft that you're in for almost free. So
I like that's the word. Say it again.
free.
Yeah, hell yeah. Uh, so what else stood out for? What else stood out for you from the camps?
I think, I've been thinking a lot about Jackson Dart, too. I think that, Scatabo is looking healthy and Nabers is rounding into form. So I think that a lot of the questions are being answered, and I think that Jackson Dart, I'm not the biggest Matt Nagy fan that there is in the world calling plays there, but man, I think Harbaugh, with the way that he utilized Lamar Jackson, and now he's got a healthy running back, a decent offensive line, and his weapons are getting healthy. He's got Likely, he's got Nabers. I think he's a guy that probably can also take a big jump here coming up in training camp, and he's at that part of the late rounds where, man, if you get him and he hits on that rushing upside and he's doing all those things, scoring touchdowns down close, man, he's a guy that has big time upside. Certainly top five, top six. On a per game basis, even just last year, he was phenomenal. So if he can avoid the boneheaded things where he's getting taking hits and doing unnecessary things, man, he might be another guy that rises up boards. With Nabers being in there, I think that solidifies Dart as a QB1 for sure, somewhere in that back end QB1 range.
Well, speaking of folks that could outperform their ADP based on their situation, let's run through a few of these. How you feeling about old Kenneth Gainwell with the Bucks? Bucky Irvin's been fine, right, over the years, but not always the healthiest person. And Gainwell wasn't half bad for Pittsburgh last year. Now he's going to have an opportunity to, make a little noise and crush that ADP. So how you feeling about that?
Yeah, I like Kenny G, man. I think I liked him in Philly, but they never used him enough. And then I kind of, there was some rumors that Kenny G was going to be getting going, and then Barkley ended up going crazy, and everybody kind of forgot. But,
Yeah.
I like Kenny G. I think he's a really, really good pass catcher. I saw him catch. I think it was like a bubble screen, and took it for a while. I saw him catching like a he's running all kind of routes in practice. I think he's like lining up with the wide receivers doing work. So yeah, I mean they paid him like 14 mil for 2 years, which for a secondary running back on your team is really good coin, man. Like I think that they know that Bucky can't handle a big workload. He's sub 200. He clearly hasn't held up. So Bucky might have the least desirable role if they put Sean Tucker down there on the goal line and have Kenny G in every single 2 minute drill and pass situation. That leaves Bucky with the between the 20s work, which is in PPR leagues the worst of it. So yeah, I like Kenneth Gainwell. I think that he's another guy where if you keep seeing him catching these balls in practice and being utilized and splitting reps with the ones, I don't see why he doesn't move up. What is he around? Somewhere around pick 100 or so. So yeah, I think that he's a great value on your bench. Are you kidding me? Plug and play on a bye week, or if somebody goes down in a PPR league, man, he's going to get you 8 to 12 points. Fire him
Mhm.
up, man. He's a good bet.
Yeah. Let's talk about now one Isaiah Pacheco. Wasn't half bad for KC when he was there. Now there's a big giant opening in Detroit that he's hoping to fill. I think a lot of us thought that the team would take Gibbs and make him that every down bell cow, never taken off the field. But the NFL is a business, right? Organizations have to protect their stars. So I think, maybe me personally, and I'm open to, I want to hear what you guys feel about this, but I think I assumed maybe a little too much that Gibbs was going to be getting, maybe 300, 320 touches, and that might not be the case. Does that impact where he's getting drafted for you? For me, he's still a top one or two pick, but I am at the tiniest bit, not sour, right? But the Pacheco's not your average number two back. So I think they're going to give him a few more touches than they might have given somebody who was less experienced.
I think Pacheco will have a role. But from everything that I heard, Dan Campbell kind of mentioning about Gibbs, walking into a bell cow role and being a workhorse and those things, that sort of alleviates any sort of like worry that I had, with that kind of thing. And also, and I'm going to try to say this as nicely as I can. So when he was in Kansas City, he had some good days early in his career. But as he went on, obviously he had the injury issues, and his efficiency dipped to really, really, poor levels. So not efficient, and arguably, he seems like a good guy. I've seen his conferences. Seems like a nice guy, but his efficiency is so bad, and his vision is a massive problem. So he's just out there kind of running around like looking to bump into guys and hit guys, and
Mhm.
rarely looking for good cutbacks and those kind of things. So he's the opposite almost of Montgomery to me. Like he can hit a home run every now and again. He's got good wheels and stuff, but he's not super sound, and he's more of a handcuff to me than an actual, like, you're not going to plug him into a flex role. I don't think he's getting regular work like Monty was. So I think he's basically an upper tier handcuff. I don't view him as like his own asset.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Yeah, he's definitely a great handcuff to have. He's especially good if you get him from the Gibbs owner, or get him from underneath the Gibbs owner. If you can draft him, get him late, super cheap, that's fantastic. Trade leverage, also, if Gibbs happens to get hurt, having Pacheco, that could be a league-winning move right there.
Bingo. That's it. Yeah, stealing guys' handcuffs, man. They get
Oh,
so
man.
bitter, but you already know you got them. You got them by the cojones. So that's it though. Yeah, I like that. Steal a guy's cuff and make him pay.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Especially with guys like, McCaffrey. Once you draft someone like that, everybody knows, you have to have his handcuff. But that handcuff isn't getting picked until, 5, 10 rounds later, and then it's a race to the clock to see who's going to beat him first. And so, yeah, feel free to go and play spoil out there, grab some handcuffs, piss some
Yep.
folks off, and win your league.
No, nothing better than sniping a guy with their handcuff right before their pick or something, man. That's the best.
Let's see. Let's talk about old Jalen Coker. We saw flashes of talent at the end of last season, and now that Chris Brazell is out for the year, there's a path for Coker to be a valuable part of the Panthers' passing attack. How you feeling about that? You taking a late round flyer?
Oh yeah, give me Jalen Coker, man. Let's go. He's one of my very favorite late round guys. I think that especially in lieu of the fact that Brazel is out, and I believe that they've said he's going to have the LCL problem. He's going to miss potentially the whole entire year. So yeah, I mean that only makes me more excited about a guy like Coker who finished the year on such a strong note. I don't even think people realize that he came out in that last game against the Rams in the playoffs and had 9 of 12 targets, had a touchdown, had like 130 plus yards, and was like the focal point of that pass attack. Now I know that Tet's going to get his fair share of targets, but also you have to factor what do you have to pay to get Tet and what do you have to pay to get Coker, right? It's a huge, huge gap there. And when you talk about a guy like Coker, like there's a very real possibility that he could lead that team in receptions.
Hmm.
Whether that Tet has getting the deeper targets, he's probably got more yards, probably got the more touchdowns and whatever. I'm sure he'll do that. But when you're thinking, man, just safe PPR guy on your bench that has upside to be a wide receiver 2 on your team or that high end flex play every week, and you draft him super late, like Coker is that guy. You really just want to target him. Him and Josh Downs are two of those guys where I think I literally leave 90% of my mock drafts or more, probably 95, almost 100%, where I get Coker and Downs, wait to take those guys. And I'm so happy when I do because you already know they're going to return that PPR value, and it's basically free. So yeah, those guys are phenomenal. But yeah, get Coker, go get him, man. Especially now and after what happened yesterday there.
And one more. How you feeling about Okonkwo with the Commanders? Clearly got some talent there. We saw that in Tennessee. And, as of this publishing, he seems to be the number 2 receiver behind McLaurin. That's a lot of opportunity there. How you feeling about the Commanders tight end?
Yeah, you know what? He was always super raw coming out of college, so that was the thing with him is like, man, he's fast. He's got, really good ability. He's a physical freak. He runs well, but he's not like polished. He's not super savvy or whatever. He's not like Jason Witten or something where he's out there just finding the soft spot of the zone. But I think that he's been growing, and I think that he had a really good year last year. And I think that he can take a step in the right direction again in a Washington offense that I think everybody just sort of assumed that they were going to go get, whether it was like Diggs or Ayuk or one of these other guys to bring in. But here we are, camp already started, and they really only have McLaurin there, and I like Antonio Williams. I'm sure I've been talking him up too, but he's a rookie, so you talk about the fact that yeah, they went out of their way to sign Okonkwo.
Hmm.
They always liked using Zach Ertz there for a while, so yeah, he's going to step into a role where they don't really have many mouths to feed. You're with an elite quarterback. Their defense is Swiss cheese, and they're in shootouts all the time. So yeah, I mean, you like a lot about Chigo Okonkwo, especially his price tag, man. I mean, if you want to punt tight end and wait and get a guy like Okonkwo and Likely together or something, and pair them and play matchups, you're sitting pretty, man.
Here's what I feel about that. Yeah, I always mean to put more of these sound effects in, so we're gonna get there. Very, very
Love it.
tickled by that.
I like him, man. I like him. Keep him coming.
Yeah, and I mean, while Okonkwo isn't going to be your first round draft pick, your drafts aren't won in those first couple rounds. You're getting those late round flyers who go from, being worth nothing to all of a sudden being a 6 round value, something like that. That's where you win your leagues. It's a good call out there.
Exactly. Yeah, free.
Um,
That's free money, baby.
yeah, I love free money. Well, as we wind down, we were right on Chuck, and we're going to keep beating his drum. We were wrong on Montgomery. We'll own that, but that's football, right? Things change, you adjust, you move on, and hopefully we'll help you dominate your league. Anything you want to leave the folks with, Ryan?
Man, it has been a pleasure as always. Like I mentioned earlier, too, I alluded to the fantasy boss is just getting cranked up right now. We've been both putting a lot of work in here. Whether it's with the draft kit or Ronald getting busy with all the other stuff there behind the scenes. So just getting amped up and excited to see a really good product roll out and grateful to be a part of it. And also too, watch my guys keep rising up boards here. I saw Buka make a play yesterday. I saw Ryan Poles hyping up Burden. Judkins out there catching balls. So, you just know, man. I was out here calling these shots. So when they're going up boards, man, just know I was here.
Yeah. And if y'all haven't already, feel free to download the free draft kit from Fantasy Boss made by Ryan of High Society Fantasy. Going to give you some great insight and information to, keep dominating your leagues. And then, yeah, if y'all need anything, have questions, comments, concerns, you want the platform to do certain things, we want this to be about the fantasy community. So hit us up. We'll be around.
Anytime, man. Anytime, any place. You hit me up.
So let's see if I can get this music to work for the outro. Let's see. Did that work? All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all next week.
Peace out. Have a great night, everybody. Appreciate you guys, man.